Welcome to Make EdTech 100. I'm Lindy Hawk, educator, K-12 EdTech advisor, and your host. This is a podcast where we keep it real about what actually works in classrooms. No hype, no overwhelm, just practical strategies, honest stories, and tools that make a real difference for teachers and students. So come along with me on a journey to make EdTech 100. Today on the pod, we have a special guest I'm excited for. Dr. Michelle Eckler is the Director of Instructional Technology for Stratford Public Schools in Stratford, Connecticut, and she leads the district-wide Instructional Technology Initiative. So welcome, Michelle, and tell us, what else should listeners know about you?
Hi, thanks for having me. Oh goodness, what else should listeners know about me? I do a lot of things outside of my day job, I guess would be the biggest things I'd like to let listeners know. I'm a mom of two amazing boys on the autism spectrum. So I'm a very big autism advocate. I'm actually president of my hometown's Special Education Parent Teacher Association, which we just started this year. An adjunct professor at Sacred Heart University in Fairfield, Connecticut. I teach an advanced curriculum course there. I am also an ISTE trainer, so I recently signed on to train people for the new EdTech Leader certification, which used to be called ISTE certification. ISTE ASCD Community Leader. I'm the Google GEG Leader for Connecticut. I don't know when I sleep. I haven't decided if I actually do sleep. I think it's
I was just going to ask that.
It's closing the eyes and pretending the world doesn't exist, basically. But I mean, other than that, like, I like to have fun too. I'm a crafter, do a lot of those things. My husband and I just learned how to use a DTF printer, which is a whole new world.
What? I don't know what that is.
Direct to
Educate
film.
me.
It's called direct to film. And so basically you print on this special printer and then you heat it up and then you can put it on shirts and other fabric products. So yeah,
cool.
we're learning how to use that and having fun and trying to come up with cool, fun slogans to put on t-shirts. But
are you going to sell the shirts?
Maybe, I don't know.
Like
right now
right
now I just do crafting for like giving away to people because it's like my joy and my time that I do on my own. But yeah, I mean, my life is wild. I feel like I'm constantly go, go, go. And yet then at 7 o'clock at night when my boys want to sit down on the couch and kind of snuggle up with mom and dad, that's what we do. And, watch Daniel Tiger. We watch a lot of Daniel Tiger in my house.
How old are they?
My boys are 12 and almost 8. So, and being on the spectrum, Daniel Tiger is their one, like, how do I say it? Comfort show that they both constantly go back to. Although my oldest has gotten into YouTube cooking videos.
Oh,
he quite enjoys the YouTube cooking videos. So
I love it. That's a great example of there really is good stuff on YouTube, and you really can learn a lot if you know how to find the good stuff.
We've seen him watching cake decorating, and I'm watching what these people are doing, like in awe. And look at him, like, you want to try it? So we might try some cake decorating one of these days and see how he does.
So wait, have you watched Is It Cake on Netflix?
No, but I've seen a lot of those videos, which blow my mind. Like when they do,
you have
steaks.
to then if he's into watching or into cake decorating, then go watch.
That may be nighttime watching for all of us.
Yeah, on Netflix, because they do like these hyper realistic cake decorators. It's crazy, and then people try to guess which one is cake, and
they probably fail most of the time.
Yeah, they do. They do.
Oh yeah.
Well, the podcast is named Make EdTech 100, and I named it that because it's open to interpretation. So our guests get to know you a little bit more. What does Make EdTech 100 mean to you?
Goodness, first thing I think of is that little symbol, that the emoji, the 100 emoji that's like red that everybody puts when they say like 100%. I mean, it's 100% of my life. How about that? No, I think for me, it's I would say recognizing that it is, if used properly, it is the future of getting our children engaged in school. But it comes down to, and I know we're going to get into a lot of conversation today, but it really comes down to using it the right way. And I think it has to be used the right way. I mean, if I want to go on the 100 theme, 100% of the time. Not that it's used 100% of the time, but it's used the right way 100% of the time.
Love that. And it's just like what we were talking about with you can find good stuff on YouTube. You can find really great learning how to decorate cakes on YouTube. That is good use of technology and
Yep.
good use of screen time. You can also find a lot of bad stuff
Oh yeah.
on
I
YouTube.
mean, what was
And
it? Skibbity Ohio or whatever the
yeah,
kids were doing. Complete
6,
brain rot,
7,
waste of time.
skibbity. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, but good things. Like I'm learning how to use Notion right now. All of it through
Okay.
watching YouTube videos.
Watching
Like
YouTube.
we
Yep.
have to cut a chunk of asphalt in my yard this weekend because we just had a pool put in. We're gonna watch YouTube videos on how to cut the
Nice.
asphalt, right? So
Yeah.
it's good
You're
for
learning.
learning if you use it the right way.
Yeah. And another analogy there is you said your kids, you watch Daniel Tiger. That's great use. A TV is a screen.
Right.
And that's great use of TV time. They're learning emotional intelligence and how to work
Mhm.
with others. But you could be sitting in front of TV watching some reality TV show that's
Right.
brain rot ability, but it's all in what you're doing, how you're interacting, how you're consuming, how you're creating.
I've learned so much just from Daniel Tiger alone. Constant reminders to myself when I'm dealing with difficult people.
Yes. It's great for people of all age. We all
Yep.
need a reminder and some little
It's
like
Mr.
emotional.
Rogers. Come on.
It is, yes,
Yep.
yes. It's so much like Mr. Rogers. I'm a '90s kid, so
Me too.
love the Mr. Rogers. So we've kind of been in the same spaces. We're both working ed tech. I would say K-12 ed tech. K-12 education is a small space, and then you like whittle down to people that really focus on the ed tech side of K-12 education. So we were kind of like, in the same spaces, but we finally got to meet IRL last summer in ISTE where was ISTE? San Antonio?
San
last year?
Antonio,
Yes.
yeah.
I might have been to so many conferences. I was like, where was that one? And I was part of your makerspace make and take playground, and you're doing it again this year, and I'm gonna be part of
Yes.
it again. So on ISTE is in Orlando this year, June, I think 29th to July 1st.
Yep.
The
sounds
last
right.
day of the conference, Wednesday, July 1st, you have your make and take playground, 11 to 12:45. For those that have never been to ISTE, or maybe you have and you didn't participate in playgrounds, tell us what is an ISTE playground.
It's first of all, it's literally exactly what it sounds like. It's a place to go play, try new things, learn new things. It's not like a regular presentation where you're going to go in and sit for 45 minutes and listen to someone present. There's tables of all different things going on. We have a big variety this year of things that people will get to learn how to make. So since it's a make and take playground, the idea is people come to our playground, go to a table, they get to actually hands-on do something and leave with a product of some kind. And any of the playgrounds, honestly, they may not all leave with a product, but all of them are smaller. It's not intimate per se, but it is because it's this huge place. But you can go to a table where there's a person with a little presentation, and it might just be you and that person for a little while, or you and a couple of people learning about something, and you could jump around from table to table. You can spend a full hour and 45 minutes there, or if you have 10 minutes between sessions, you can stop in and learn something. It's like they're bite-sized little pieces of learning throughout the playground. And the best part, in my opinion, about this year's playgrounds is they're right outside the main stage. So as people are going into the main stage, if you're waiting in line to get in, you can just hop into the playground and take a peek at what's going on. And there's so many good ones this year, but ours is right before the closing main stage, which is kind of wild.
What I'm doing, what I did last year, I'm going to do again this year, is an e-textiles wearable technology table.
So
I'll
cool.
have a table set up and we're going to do an LED sequin project. So I have
Nice.
these little sewable LED sequins and coin cell battery holders, and you use conductive thread to sew them together.
So cool.
Yeah. So they'll get to, my rule is, as long as they sit and they sew their sequin on, it's a few stitches on, you have to sew the positive to the positive, the negative to the negative. Then they get to walk away with whatever creation.
We've had so many different creations over time. I mean, we've had light up headbands. Unfortunately, they can't come this year, which is kind of a bummer, but we've had learning how to finger knit. We had one year where we had someone doing coding with beads, like learning how code works by using bracelets. Like there's just so many different options. And the idea behind our playground is that most of the things that our presenters are doing can be adapted to fit into almost any subject area in any classroom. Like I think of, especially with what you're doing, I think of my husband's a paraeducator in one of the elementary schools in my hometown. And every year they do a Cinderella ball. And I'm like, how cool would it be to have the kids learning about the sequence of how you put things together to make something light up as part of the Cinderella concept, right? And maybe it's they're putting it on a shoe for the fancy shoe for Cinderella or whatever it is. But it's something that can be, the idea is any of these things can be adapted to fit anywhere. And that makerspace concept is not just for the library, that we should be doing these hands-on learning experiences with the children in any subject area, in any grade level.
I want to work with a prom couple or like a Cinderella ball couple.
That'd be great.
A father-daughter dance so bad with my LED sequin e-textiles project, and like light up their tux and their dresses. And just, and then watch everybody's face light up when they walk down the runway with their lights everywhere. And you can do all sorts of cool things with the e-textiles and the wearable technology. You can have color sensors where you can tap the light to a color and it will like match the color of their gown. And you can have sound sensors. Amazing. It would be so cool for prom, like Grand March, to have a sound sensor where the louder people cheer, the more the lights light up, or the faster the lights move, or something like that. Yeah,
we need to collaborate, because this would be great for children on the spectrum too, because I would love something where when my son gets too loud, he has a bracelet that lights up for him. Because we do not, one thing we know as parents of children on the spectrum is we do not stop stimming. However, there is a such thing as an inside voice when you're stimming. And my oldest does not understand the inside voice concept. I mean, the
he
volume
needs a sound meter.
He needs a sound meter like to wear on his wrist or something. So when he's, doing his little stimming and he's doing something and all of a sudden his wrist is blinking red, he's like, oh, maybe I need to lower my voice.
I love that.
Let's get on this.
Brilliant.
Nobody steal it. This is our idea. It's now officially on the podcast as our idea. Yeah.
Well, what makes me think of our friends have kids who have, I can't remember the name, they're like these glow lamps and they're beside their bed. And if it's a certain color, I think red or something, yellow, orange, something like that, then that means that it's bedtime and they need to be in bed.
They're so cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, and so one of them is like a super early riser. So at like 6 a.m., it turns to green. And then when it turns green, he knows that he can get out of bed.
Right.
So it's their way of teaching him, not to get up at 4 a.m. type of thing. It's the same idea of using these colors and these lights to give a cue as to, hey, maybe I need to lower down to an inside level voice. Just like teachers use sound meters in classrooms. No, it's great. It's like a personal sound meter on your person. Love it. I will put in the show notes, I have a blog post as well as an infographic on that blog post. And it's like a 4-page infographic. It's very extensive that has links to supplies and instructions and all the things that you need to get started doing this LED sequin project. So if you're not able to make it to our playground at ISTE, you can get started with that. So you mentioned that it's a make and take makerspace focused playground, and you said something about, this is for more than just library, it's for all content areas. So tell us, like, what does make and take mean? What's a makerspace? What's maker learning? What's the difference between them?
Difference between them is going to be a tough one for me because I'm still learning that. The makerspace concept is really the idea that your imagination is kind of the limit. So if you can come up with something, you have ideas and you have materials, you can create something. I've been in my current district in Stratford for about 1.5 years now. And prior to that, I was working in another district. And that's where this idea came from, because we were really working on getting makerspaces into our schools. And we started with pretty much every kind of material you could think of. We were using grant funds, ESSER funds at the time to be able to fund these makerspaces. We had things like, I think they're called Kevlar planks. We had Legos. We had pipe cleaners and cotton balls and glue. We had a water table. Cardboard. Yep. We had
Cardboard's a best friend.
I think it's called Make Do, the like saws and things that you can cut with that won't cut your skin or your hands for the little ones. We had a couple of our schools did get 3D printers through that. Like, basically, we wanted to make sure that there were materials available for the children to use their imagination to build something. Sometimes it was a very particular topic put out by either our library media specialist or a classroom teacher. And other times it was just open maker play, go in and here's all the materials, use your imagination. And the idea for us was to really spark the project-based learning concept in a less structured world so that the students were able to see something that they've developed come to life. And that's the hands-on side of it. But there's also virtual sides of it. We've been talking a lot about how we can infuse chatbot technology into makerspaces and having students talk about their ideas with a chatbot to come up with, okay, what might I do with it? We've been talking about different ways that you could utilize something like Canva code to develop a product that maybe isn't as physically hands-on, but it is hands-on because it's your creative idea. You're using the Canva code to come up with that. And then maybe you create like a game or like, I love to see kids make cards for holidays that way, like, interactive cards. There's a lot of things that can be done within makerspace with a variety of technology, either high tech that costs a lot of money or low tech, going to, your local Walmart or Sam's Club and buying some foam and some scissors and some glue and some tape, like things like that. The idea is really just getting the kids to do something different than what they're used to doing.
Create.
Yes,
Mhm.
exactly.
Yep. Giving them the time, the space, the materials
Yeah.
to make.
Right. And
Love it.
it's sometimes structured, like I said, and most of the time not.
Mm.
There's a theme, that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's great. I've been in a lot of schools that have some sort of maker space. A lot of times it is in the library, but I've also seen it in like the career and tech ed classrooms. I've seen specific spaces that are just a maker space, or sometimes they're called a STEM lab or a STEAM lab. I've seen it where it is very unstructured. I've seen it very structured as well, too, where the person that's leading the makerspace and the teacher work together to find an interdisciplinary project that then the teacher brings the students into the makerspace to create something that links to what they're learning in science or English or math or whatever class it is. So yeah, it really is, the sky's the limit. There's no right way to do it. There's no wrong way to do maker learning and maker spaces, in my opinion. At Stratford Public Schools, do you guys have your maker spaces live in your libraries, or
We're
is it just
still developing
depends?
them here.
Okay.
So we've gone through some transitions where our library media specialists have transitioned into tech integration specialist roles. And right now we're really heavily focused on the classroom. But one of the kind of visions for my department is that as we grow, we have 13 schools. The goal is to have 13 total integration specialists, one at each school. Next school year, we'll be up to 6, which is amazing. I'm getting closer and closer. But their home bases are still going to be the libraries, and many of them are library certified as well. And so we will eventually be looking to make our libraries into those more creative, exciting spaces where, yes, we are still going to honor the tradition of book checkout, of books. I'm a former ELA teacher. There is no way I am going to ever say, I don't want a kid reading. I'm also, I'm an avid reader. I read every single day of my life, not fiction books to kind of lose the world for a little while. And so I will never say that that will go away, but I love the idea that a kid who has an idea for an app can come in and sit down with an integration specialist and learn this new way to do some vibe coding in the school. Or, a kid's going to come in and they're doing a project in science and they need to prototype something because they're going through the design thinking process. All of these pieces are going to be developed into our maker spaces eventually. It's just a matter of building them out and figuring out now how we want them to look here. And the interesting thing about Connecticut in general, we're such a tiny little state, but we have, I believe it's like 167 or 170 individual school districts in our teeny tiny little state. Like, what are we? I think we're the 3rd smallest state or 4th smallest state in the country, with still that many school districts, and every single one is in a different place with that hands-on makerspace learning. And so for Stratford, it's a new thing I'm trying to bring in and start to develop it and push towards it. there's a lot of project-based learning going on in classrooms here and a lot of push towards that, but not necessarily the hands-on outside of our CTE department. So that's our goal, is to move towards that and really develop that understanding that it's not just in our CTE classes, it's not just in our, libraries, but it's everywhere. And we want to make it more universal across the schools.
That's great. That's actually how I got started with my LAD Sequin project. Was my CTE background, I taught family consumer sciences and business, and I'd been in so many schools, I'd been in so many makerspace, and I'd only been in one that had a sewing machine. And I
And
was like,
sewing's so important. We wouldn't be wearing clothing if we didn't have sewing
no,
machines.
I'd say that to people all the time. I'm like, without textiles and sewing, we would all be committing indecent exposure, is my joke.
It doesn't just magically appear as stitched,
It's $1 billion textiles, fashion. It's $1 billion
Just look at the Met Gala.
Yes, but it's often just so overlooked. And the other thing I do when I do a more formal session on my e-textiles wearable project is I get people to see that it is much more than clothing and fashion. It's interior design.
Mm-hmm.
Textiles is a huge part. Couch fabric, right? Sporting goods.
Yep.
Huge, like tents, making waterproof fabrics, making
it's
wool that's
too.
not scratchy but keeps you warm and cool at the same time. Yeah. It's culture. It's
I mean, look at
so
how many different cultures wear different things and have different ideas about what those textiles should do for their lives. It's so huge.
It's huge. But that's the great thing about maker spaces and maker learning is it gives you that space to be able to bring in things like e-textiles, sewing, fashion, 3D printers. You can bring in additive manufacturing in there. You don't have to. You can start with just cardboard and scissors and glue and tape, like you said, but then slowly add in a sewing machine, add in some 3D printers. I love the vibe coding for maker learning now, and you can just grab your Chromebooks or whatever devices you have in your carts and start vibe coding away and create amazing websites and apps. And yeah, it's
insane what we can do now.
It's insane. Like the sky's the limit, and kids just need the time, the space, and the resources to be able to do it. Change gears a little bit. I want to do a segment I call Tech Check or Tech Rec. And this is where I give you something and you give your honest take on it. Okay. All right. Of whether you think it's a tech check or it's a tech rec. Okay. All right. This one relates a little bit to, I tried to combine a maker learning element here. What do you think about leveraging generative AI for creation and maker learning?
Oh, definitely a tech check. I may be on the wrong side of that one. I don't know, and I know a lot of people don't agree with me, but I am a strong believer that generative AI can help you to take what's up in your brain and make it a reality if you don't know certain things. So my best example, when I hear people say that generative AI is just stealing other people's stuff, I'm like, yeah, in some places, absolutely, 100%. You want to write an article for a journal and you just go on to ChatGPT or, Claude or Gemini and say, hey, write this article for me. Yeah, you're stealing other people's stuff. That's bottom line. But if you are someone who has a really cool, creative new idea, but you have yet to learn the skill necessary to do that. Like, for example, you have an app idea you want to create and you don't really know coding, or you only have a very base level. Like I have a very base level of coding. Like I understand the difference between a curly bracket and, a caret. And I can tell you what a basic function is. And I could probably even tell you, if I'm in Google App Scripts, how to write an on-open function. But that's about the extent of what I know. And yet for the past couple of weeks, I've been developing a tool for my district, which I'm not going to share exactly what it is just yet because it's one of the things I'm presenting about at ISTE, but an internal tool that I would have never been able to do in the time period I was able to do it in had I not learned how to use Canvas in Google Gemini, because Google Gemini Canvas allows me to see all the code, to constantly prompt my AI to say, no, I need to fix this. I don't like the color of this. This doesn't look right. I am the creator. And it is like having a sidekick helping me do that creation. So when it is used for that purpose to actually like help you do something that you might not have otherwise been able to do, and then also from that sparks your desire to learn more. Like now I'm starting to like read the code very carefully, and I'm starting to learn where I can find the errors when, because we all know AI can produce errors. So even in coding, it produces errors, and I'm starting to see the errors. I can skim through it and find them. I'm starting to understand more about the order of the code and what way it should go. So when it's being used to take what's in the brain and make it a reality in a quicker way, I think it is absolutely a tech check. Like we should be encouraging our children to find ways to do that. Multiple reasons for that too, though, besides the fact that it helps them feel a win when they have something really cool and creative that they want to have come out, but also because that's the way the corporate world is going. They're really starting to push their technology engineers, their coders to use generative AI to help speed up the process. And then they do the double checking of the code to make sure it's right. They beta test it, they do all of those things, but they don't have to sit in a room anymore and just type code all day. They're actually getting to use their creativity, which so many of them choose to become coders because they had that creativity in their minds. So I'm all for it, but I'm also cautious in that we have to teach the children to use it the way they're supposed to. Unfortunately for us, as is everything in education, it came out before we even knew it was going to come out and before we had a chance to figure out how to teach kids how to use it. So now we're backpedaling and trying to figure out how do we backfill all the things that they learned how to do on their own, which may or may not be the best ways to use them, use those tools. And then how do we like reteach them the right ways? And how do we make sure new generations coming up have the proper ways of using these tools? Because it's like anything else, it's a tool. My colleague says all the time, you can use the back end of a drill to hammer in a nail into your wall. It's going to work. It's just not the right tool for the job, and it's not going to do a good job at it.
Yep. It's the same as what we were talking about at the beginning with screen time.
Right.
There's good screen time, there's bad screen time. There's good uses of technology for learning, there's bad uses. There's good uses of generative AI, and there's really bad uses of generative AI as well. And yeah, it's that learning the judgment, the reasoning, when to use it to help you, to support you, to create a very quick prototype. Did a student AI/tech summit in New Mexico a few weeks ago, and we had about 50 high school kids from all over New Mexico come for a day and a half, and we did a whole design thinking thing, and they identified a problem and a solution and created a prototype. And we were really surprised on day one that they wanted nothing to do with vibe coding. We could not get them interested.
Surprising.
Yeah, every one of them got a microbit. And I taught them how to block code their microbits. And then we transitioned into vibe coding. So they got both, right? They wanted nothing to do with the vibe coding. They were like so interested in the block coding, they wanted to touch it. And then when it got to the point where they started to actually build their prototypes out, I had multiple conversations with different kids where I was like, okay, here's what you want to build. One of them wanted to build a website that was like a PSA educating people about how to keep wildlife safe on the roadways, like creating the underpasses and the overpasses. I had another one that wanted to create a website where people could find mental health support in their area. And both of them were trying to build by scratch.
Oh, were they using HTML?
Yeah, well, they were like, we tried all sorts of different things. Like we tried Google Sites, but it was blocked. And then I was like, okay, if you really don't want to vibe code your website, we tried Wix, we tried Weebly, we tried all these different things. And finally I was with one of them. I was like, can I just show you something? And she's like, okay. So I'm like, open up Canva. And I said, click on Canva AI and hit the code button. And I want you to just describe what you want your site to look like and be very descriptive. And we talked about things that, this was the mental health site. So you want it to be very photorealistic. You don't want it to have a animation or an anime vibe to it, right? So be very specific in that. If you want a specific color scheme, tell it that. So I'm like, I'll come back in a couple of minutes. So I walk away, I come back a couple minutes later. She's got a pretty good paragraph prompt. And I read it and it was very good. I was like, wow, that's really good. I'm like, okay, just hit enter. She hits enter and we watch the code. You know, on Canva code, it
Yeah,
just
and it
starts
keeps
spitting out
building.
the
Yep.
code. Yeah, and it's like very satisfying. You're like, whoa, it just spits out like lines
Yep.
of code that would take you, it would take me days to
Hours,
do.
days, weeks.
Hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it starts spitting out and then it pops up this website. And it not only built the website, it created this cool logo for her in the color scheme that she gave and the whole bit. And she was like, oh, and you could just see the light bulb go off.
Yep.
Like from going from trying to build it from scratch, and they didn't have a whole lot of time to build their prototype, to then see this website be built in a matter of seconds. But that was her vision.
Right.
It just,
it was her
did,
creativity. It just did the,
yes,
it did the legwork for her.
it did the legwork. And
Yeah.
but then, and so then I talked to her like, okay, like what do you want to change? All right, let's prompt it and let's tell it. And I walked away. I came back maybe 30 minutes later, and she had this amazing website, and she was so proud of it. It was so cool. And I had a couple other kids that had that same experience where once we got them to open up and go try it, they were like, whoa. And then I'm reading through the feedback responses from the feedback form when we're done the last day. I'm sitting at the airport reading through the feedback on my phone, and almost every one of the responses said something along the lines of, I thought AI was only used to make bad music and bad images. I didn't realize that AI could be used for good stuff. I didn't realize that AI was so powerful. I didn't realize that coding was so easy and so accessible. Those were every single feedback comment. And I realized that we have done a major disservice to these kids by only, that was another comment was, I only thought AI was used for cheating.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's all they've ever heard. All they've ever heard
Right.
is the bad stuff of the technology.
This is why we banned it. This is why it's not allowed.
And so they both are, Gen Z especially is very anti-AI in terms of they're scared that they're going to be called out for cheating.
Yep.
So they don't even want to touch it and use it for the powerful things. And there's this conversation in the media, and especially among like artist type groups, that it's terrible and we should never touch it and it's taking away from the human element. So just don't touch it ever, because all it does is make crap and AI slop, right? All it does is make AI slop. And that is really doing a disservice. Like you said, the industry is moving the opposite. Industry is really pushing AI onto their employees.
It's the cognitive offloading of the tasks that take away from our ability to be creative. And if we can offload those parts that allow us to be creative, we're going to be able to be more creative, more human. It's I look at it this way. It's just like the big hubbub over the calculator when it first came out. Calculator's going to make it so people don't know how to do math. Pretty sure I can still add and subtract, divide and multiply in my head a lot, you know, and honestly, I only pull out the calculator when it's big numbers and I don't have time to take out a paper and pencil to, you know, write it out. You know, like, do we have them in our pockets? Of course we do. We all walk around with a calculator every single day. But are we using it all the time? Not when you're at the store and you see something's $12.99, you have $15 in your pocket and you're like, oh, do I have enough money? You're not pulling out your calculator to check that. But it's a tool we have in case we need it. That's like, you got to use AI as a tool.
Yep. But you still have the foundational knowledge to be able to know if the calculator is giving you the right answer or not. Like if you put in 275 minus 189 and it gives you 500, you're going to go, wait, that's not right. That's not right. I must have keyed something wrong, or, you know, something happened. And you can fact check that response if you may, right? Because you still have that foundational knowledge. It's the same with AI. As long as we keep giving humans the foundational knowledge, but also give them the skills to leverage the good parts of the technology, mitigate the bad parts of the technology, right? We don't want AI slop taking over the world in any way, shape, or form, from books to art pieces, right? But it can also really aid in helping artists and helping authors and creating new forms of art that didn't exist before. I think that's the cool part about what technology does. It opens up new forms of creation, like 3D printing. 20 years ago, 3D printing wasn't accessible to the consumer level, to the average person or the average artist. And now, actually, there's an episode, speaking of fashion, of Project Runway. One of the contestants in one of the seasons uses 3D printing in his outfits that he
Oh, that's
makes for the
cool.
runway. Like, I think he
That's
was a
really cool.
finalist that season, right? That wouldn't have existed
No, not at all. It's
20 years
new.
ago.
Yeah.
It's a new form of
I don't even think
incorporating
10 years ago.
technology into the art of fashion, and like
Right.
merging those two. And I think that's what these more like generative AI in particular, more advanced forms of AI is going to get us. So yeah, for sure. Speaking of AI, how are you approaching it at Stratford Public Schools?
So we are very proactive with AI. So when I started in the district last year, we already had an AI task force whose main job last year was to develop. We had three things that we were tasked with: develop a policy for the district, develop a professional learning plan, and choose a platform that we wanted that would allow both teachers and students to use the AI in a somewhat collaborative way. So we developed and wrote a policy. It passed our Board of Education with no questions, which was amazing. I mean, they were just all for it and all on board with the policy. It is on our stratfordk12.org. Anybody can go see the full policy if they wanted to. We chose Magic School AI as our district platform. So we use that for teachers can use it. Teachers also have access to Gemini because we are a Google district, but all of our students, as of 2 months ago, we opened up Magic Student for our students. Right now, it is still in the you can't use it unless your teacher creates a room phase, but we are working on enhancing that more at the secondary level because we know the students are using it outside of school, but we have very strict data privacy policies in Connecticut. Ours are some of the strictest, not the strictest, but some of the strictest in the state. So we have to be very careful of like what tools we allow our students to use on our Wi-Fi. Doesn't mean they're not using them at home. It depends upon what they have access to at home. But in our buildings on our devices, we have limited them to Magic School. And then a professional learning plan where this year we introduced our teachers to Magic School. We've been providing them with some monthly tools like go into Magic School, try this, try this, try this. And then moving into next school year, the plan is to start talking about prompting strategies and how do you get AI to kind of help you do some of that cognitive offloading? How do you use Magic School or any kind of AI tool specifically in the classroom? We developed a series of guidelines for our staff that we just finished getting feedback from them on, and they'll be officially sent out as our official guidelines for teachers for next school year, which talk about what we would like to see we encourage you to use AI in your classroom, and here are ways to use it within the different grade levels. So for example, in K through 3, we don't want the children touching it themselves. We strongly believe that in K through 3, it needs to be teacher driven. We want them to still see it as like this amazing, wow, magic thing. So maybe the kids are talking out a story. They're coming up with the story on their own. They're being incredibly creative. They're talking about what they want the characters to look like. They're talking about what they want the scenery to look like. And as they're doing this, the teacher is typing this information into a storybook generator on Magic School. And then she pushes the button or he pushes the button and boom, there goes, it comes to life what these kids just came up with. As we move up in the grades, we start to encourage the use of the rooms where teachers can actually really direct what the students are using. And then we really try to get in these guidelines that we created at the secondary level, our students using AI to help support them in becoming the student we want them to be through our portrait of a graduate. So our portrait of a graduate actually aligns so beautifully with the ISTE ASCD profile of a AI ready graduate. We have problem solving, community members, critical thinkers, like all of those pieces are a component of our portrait of a graduate, and those all align. And so we're trying to push them towards that understanding. And then we're also working with our teachers on AI prompting. One of the things I'm most excited about, it was supposed to happen on March 11th, but we live in New England up here and we had a lot of snow this year. So our professional learning
We didn't. You guys got all our Montana snow.
we got all the
had,
snow this year. We had 2 blizzards. We don't usually have that. I think one was only qualified as a blizzard, but I mean, both of them dumped like 2 feet of snow on us in a matter of 24 hours. It was crazy. But then it's New England, so like 3 days later, half the snow was already gone. That's just the way it works here. But so we pushed our professional learning to June 24th, which I'm very excited because my colleague and I are hosting what we called the AI sandbox. And so our teachers can sign up to come to our session. It's a 2-hour session. And basically, they kind of just get to sit in the room, pick an AI tool, whatever their favorite AI tool is. We're not telling them they have to use a specific one. Come up with something they want to accomplish using the AI, and then take that time to do that with him and me in the room as their little AI experts. So if they're having problem with prompting, if they're having, no matter how many times they ask it, it keeps coming up with the same thing. If they're having trouble with something, they want to learn how Nano Banana works in Gemini and creating images, we can walk them through that. So I'm very excited about that. And then we have so many other presentations that day where some of our staff are teaching their colleagues how to use AI in certain ways. We have a couple of them on using Notebook LM. We have a group that's doing something on how to create podcasts in the classroom and how to use AI to help with that. We have people talking about how to use AI to help develop really cool new math games and math prompts. I mean, we have some people who have really done a good job. The part of our AI work I'm most proud of, besides the fact that other school districts are kind of looking at our policy and saying, maybe we should just steal theirs, is that this summer in July, Day of AI is holding a big conference in Boston, and every state had to send one superintendent and 2 students from that district. And Stratford was selected by Connecticut. So my boss, my superintendent, and 2 of our high school students are going to be going to this Day of AI event up in Boston. And it's so cool that we get to represent. I mean, we're a tiny state, but 170 school districts, and we were chosen to represent them. And that to me is like, that's just a testament to the work that everybody in this district is doing in trying to understand how AI works, and also trying to figure out how to make it part of our lives in a way that makes sense.
Love it. So I want to dig into the policy part because
Yeah.
I'm getting so many questions about policies from school leaders. What should we do? Where should it live? All of the things. So you have this policy. It's on your website. I will put that in the show notes, by the
Okay.
way, if listeners want to look at that. Is this a standalone policy? Is this as part of your acceptable use policy? Is it more guidelines, or is it truly a policy? Like, tell us more details on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So ours is a standalone policy, and it is a true district policy. Our policy talks about a variety of things, including that we talk about what is considered the right tools to use. We have a strong belief in the idea of augmentation over automation. So we don't want our staff and our students using AI to automate everything in their lives. It's the idea of using it to support them. So that's in our policy. We talk about data privacy within our policy. So the policy is I think it's like 4 or 5 pages long. It establishes the AI task force as the kind of governing body of AI within the district. It tasks us with constantly reviewing the policy as well to make sure as AI changes that we are updating and using it appropriately. It is distinct and separate from our acceptable use policy, so which is also under revision right now. Our acceptable use policy is actually being revised as part of our work with a grant that we have with ISTE, ASCD, and Pinterest on digital wellness. And so we've been working with another task force, the Digital Wellness Task Force, to redesign our acceptable use policy into a responsible use policy. It's kind of,
I love that.
yeah,
I talk about that a lot.
It's mincing words, but it really does mean
It's
something
important,
different.
though. It does mean
Yeah.
something different. That little shift from
Mhm.
acceptable use to responsible use
Right.
is really important when you think about digital literacy and learning how to use technology responsibly, ethically.
And we're trying to
ways.
shift the narrative because it's always been acceptable use. When we sat down and looked at our acceptable use policy for the first time, my colleague and I, we went to a session where that was the first thing we were asked to do as we were kicking off this new digital wellness task force in our district. We could not believe how many don'ts were in there. And we were like, so what do we do with it? What are we supposed to do? Because we're not supposed to do this. So our policy, while there are still some don'ts, because there always has to be don't give your password to anyone. We wanted to change it originally to protect your password. And we had a student on our committee who was like, yeah, don't do that. He's like, leave it as don't, because I could see some students saying, well, it is protected. I shared it with my BFF. That's not really protecting your password,
right.
But okay. So
Yeah,
there's still
sometimes you need to be very
Yeah.
explicit.
Exactly. So there are still some don'ts in there, but we've really shifted the language. And so we kept them very separate and distinct for a couple of reasons. But the biggest reason is that our idea of what responsible use is, we don't see shifting as much as our idea of what is the way to use AI will shift. Because as AI grows and changes, our AI policy is going to have to grow and change. And we were very clear with our Board of Education when we created the policy that, like, what you're reading right now might even be obsolete next year at this time, for all we know. But
Okay.
our AI task force job is to review it every 2 years and make sure. So, like, we had this year was about developing guidelines. Next year, we're talking about two concepts. We are going to be looking at how do we embed it into the curriculum. So we're trying to get people from all different subject areas to join our task force next year. So that way they can give us advice on, like, how does an ELA teacher use it? How does a science teacher use it? How does a math teacher use it? And then also we have to go back and review our policy, make sure nothing has really changed in the world of AI, figure out, like, what kinds of trainings, like, one part of it is that we're required to provide professional learning to our staff. So now the next step, we've given some, what more do they need? What next steps do they need? How are we going to train our new teachers as they come in? How do we make sure our new staff understand our policy? How do we double check to make sure that our current staff haven't forgotten the policy? So there's a lot of work that's going around it. And our superintendent is extremely on board with AI, wants to make sure that we're using it right, wants to make sure that we're teaching the students, because she recognizes the fact that if we don't, we're preparing them for a completely different world. They're not going to know what to do. And the most interesting part of this whole thing for me is I was just at a conference last week, a state conference, and I met my colleague and I presented, and I met a librarian from the University of Connecticut. And she said the difference between students coming in and their knowledge of AI all over the world, astronomical. And so they've had to develop an AI literacy course for students, and it's not required, but they all come with different knowledge. So the students from UConn all come in with different types of knowledge regarding AI, some who've never used it before at all, and others who come in with a very solid knowledge of how to use it wrong, and others who come in with a decent knowledge of what is good digital citizenship. So she reached out as an idea of saying, okay, how do we start to bridge this gap? And how do we make sure that all of our high school students leave with some knowledge so that they're not going to college blind?
I want to make sure that we touch on the screen time debate. We already touched on it a little bit at the beginning of today. And so if you're not familiar, if you're not following the media, in my last couple podcast episodes, there's a big push. The media is really screaming, get rid of devices, super limit tech use and screen time in schools, go back to computer labs. We already talked about this idea of that not all screen time is created equal. That's my couple podcast episodes ago. That's the title of that episode. And it's all in how you use it. What other thoughts do you have on this screen time school tech use debate?
It's a frustrating one for me, for a lot of reasons. Yeah, but there's a lot of reasons. One of them, I remember sitting in a room with a bunch of people saying, oh, if only we had Chromebook carts, things would be so much better. And now we have Chromebook carts and everybody's complaining about them.
Yep.
But for me, I think the biggest piece of it is it comes down to, well, first of all, I think there has to be a solid understanding of the difference between instructional technology and technology that's curriculum. So everybody probably has read the iReady debate, right? What's out there?
Yes.
That's not instructional technology.
That's not, yes.
Stop calling it instructional technology. That's an online tool for math, and it's not that good, clearly, because it's coming out that it's not, Khan Academy, not an instructional technology. HMH, what other ones are out there? Any of these programs. Yep. They are not instructional technology. They're curriculum
a digital
tools
first
that use
curriculum.
Right. Versus Google tools, Kami, Magic School, Diffit,
Book Creator,
right? All of these
Canva
tools, right? Canva, all of these tools that can help students take the learning that they have and make them into something different. So one of the things that we teach in this class that I teach at Sacred Heart University, it's an advanced curriculum class. And we talk about, it's from Wiggins and McTighe. It's part of Understanding by Design. It's the idea of acquisition, making meaning, and transferring. So it's first you have to acquire the knowledge, then you have to make meaning of the knowledge that you've acquired. And then the ultimate goal is to be able to transfer that learning into a new or novel situation. So if all we're ever doing is sitting at the lowest level of the SAMR line and just substituting by having students type a paper, we are never getting them to that point of transferring the knowledge into a different situation. I'm a former ELA teacher. I used to always tell my students, I really don't care in 20 years if we're walking down the street. I'm not going to walk up to you and say, how many people died in Romeo and Juliet? Quick, tell me. Like, I don't care. But I might walk up to you and say, have you read anything good lately? And maybe something you read might be like, I read this book and it reminded me so much of what happened in Romeo and Juliet. And to me, that's a win because that's a transfer of knowledge. They're taking what we learned in that class and they're transferring it. And so for me, I like to see when we can take that technology side of it and enhance that even more and push it even more and say, okay, really cool. Maybe you just read Romeo and Juliet in your English class, but have you ever thought of what it might look like if you were to have like, I don't know, a want ad board from back then, from when they were? And could you use Canva and maybe even some Canva code to develop what that might look like and what might have happened if Romeo or Juliet had gone and seen this, or, bringing in the mental health side of things with that and saying, what evidence, what recommendations might you have given them? And can you do something? Or there's just so many different ways. And so if we start to limit screen time, because we know that the American Academy of Pediatrics said screen time's not the issue, it's the use of it. There's a difference between doom scrolling TikTok and learning something. We have to be very careful about just saying remove it from the classrooms. And then I also think we have to take a step back and look at what are we teaching our teachers? And many of our teachers have not been taught how to use technology in a very strategic and useful way. And so we have to take a step back and say, okay, let's put that into place. Let's teach them the SAMR model. Let's teach them the TPAC model. Let's look at those pieces and ask them, when they choose to use technology, why are they choosing to use it in that situation? And what are they asking the kids to do with it? It's another layer, and it's hard because our teachers are already stressed and overworked, and we know this, but we have to figure out a way to weave it into the work we're already doing because it's such an important thing to not lose sight of that with the kids.
You just basically summarized my last two podcast episodes. And
I swear I didn't even listen to them yet either. They're on my list to listen to, but I did not cheat. Good. There was no cheating here, no use of AI.
It shows that we're getting the right message out. Yeah. We're all of us that are the ones that do this for a living are on the same page here, that it all depends on what you're doing. And I love that you distinguish between digital curriculums and instructional technology tools that support learning. Whenever I am asked by a school to come in and do a professional learning session or work with their teachers in some ways, I have a list of questions I ask them. And one of them is like, what technology, well, of course the devices, but then I ask them like, what tools do your teachers have available to them? Or do you have a list of allowable tech tools? Do you have a list of tools that aren't allowed that maybe don't meet your data privacy requirements, whatever? And almost always I get their curriculum. Yep. Oh, well, we use iReady or HMH, a Starfall. We use Starfall, right? And I'm like, that's great. That's good to know.
Renaissance. We have
Renaissance. That's a big one.
Which I'm not saying they're bad things. They're good things to have, but they're not.
But it's not. It's
when
we're talking about and when we're talking about devices and students using devices and having Chromebooks and having Chromebook carts or laptop carts or iPad carts or whatever it is, like that's not what we're talking about.
Right.
We already named so many in this episode ways of really amazing learning opportunities that require a device. We talked about 3D printing. You can't 3D print without a device because you have to put your design through a slicing software to prep it for the printer, and then you have to send it to the printer in some way or another. That requires a device, preferably some sort of Windows, Mac, or Chrome OS device to do that. Yep. So that's a perfect example. I gave the example of our kids at my summit that were coding using microbits, and then they were vibe coding and creating prototypes. They had to have a device in order to do any of that stuff. they weren't staring at their device for flat
No,
straight
they're
hour,
using it
day
for
and a
a
half.
tool.
Yep. And so much of they were doing when I was teaching them to block code was just going back and forth, right? Like they were
Right.
on their device and they were building out their code and they were testing it in the make code. Make code has a microbit simulator, so they were testing their code there. But then they were plugging in their microbit and they were loading the code on it and they were unplugging the microbit and playing around with the physical microbit
Yeah.
device, right? Like they wouldn't have been able to do anything with that microbit without a device. A microbit is an amazing piece of technology, but only if you have a device to plug it into to
Right.
be able to load code onto it. Otherwise,
Podcasting. I had
podcasting.
I had one of my technology integration specialists did a huge podcast project, and she's doing it again with another grade level now. And it was literally just about the Oregon Trail. That's what they were learning about in social studies. And so the kids put together a podcast. They would not have been able to record themselves, edit it, and put pictures and things like that. They wouldn't have been able to do any of that if they didn't have that device available to them. And she actually went as far as she went on Amazon and bought like a little plug-in microphone so they could feel like they were on a real podcast. And I was like, oh, I
love
think
it.
we got to get something fancier for you at some point so that, the kids can feel like super podcasty. But, you can't do those things. And that's a great opportunity. Interpersonal skills, writing, reading, understanding what it means to communicate in a verbal way. Like there's so many things. Then there's the whole technology side of it, editing, looking at it from the standpoint of how am I going to promote this? How am I going to get people to listen to it? Making sure their sound is good. That is so many skills rolled into one. And all they were talking about, they each had to pick a topic about the Oregon Trail. I mean, like that's literally what they were doing. So now
Yep.
those kids will always remember that topic because they had to do all of that
Because
work.
they created something
Yes.
from it. Yep.
And it's memorable because it's fun, but it's memorable because their brain is using so many different areas to basically encode that information in there now. And they've learned so many different things from that one little 3-minute podcast they created about a topic. And now they're going to remember the topic too, which is the
And guess what
original
else?
goal.
What else they're doing by creating a podcast is they're learning a healthy, responsible, ethical use of technology.
Yes.
That is going to
exactly.
support them in their life, because if they're going to be an entrepreneur of any kind, so many kids want to be influencers now.
Oh, yeah.
Podcasting, this is me right here doing a podcast, is an integral part of doing that and
Right.
educating your audience in so many different ways. So, yeah. And the problem with the whole, okay, well, let's just go back to computer labs, or let's make it so we're not one-to-one, that, the teacher now has to go and check out a cart again. That didn't work. You mentioned
No.
it. You said the excuse at that point was, well, I can't use the technology because I don't have instant access to it. Like if a teacher has to sign up for a computer lab or sign up to check out a laptop cart or an iPad cart, it's going to make it 10 times more difficult for them to use it versus being able to just go to the cart in the room, grab a device out of it when we're ready to use it.
And there's teaching on the fly. I mean,
Teaching on the fly.
We have to be planned. We know this. The best classrooms have solid plans. But hello, teachable moments. You're in the middle of something and say, why don't you guys grab the Chromebooks and let's look that up right now and see if that works. Like you can't do that without access to them. You can't do that. And it drives me crazy because when I think about how much time I spent planning out just when I was going to get into the computer lab as a classroom teacher. Like, I mean, I literally would come in, which I learned the hard way my first year of teaching, that we had 2 computer labs for an entire high school my first year of teaching. I started teaching in 2001. So that was a long time ago. Not a lot of technology available to us at the time. And I had to sign out the lab so far in advance that by my second year of teaching, I planned out before school year started exactly when I needed to be in the labs and would go up and do that, and then forget it when the snow days happened in the middle of the year and my whole plan got messed up, and now I had to figure it out.
The other problem is, like, say you're doing a podcasting project and you planned 3 days and it's going to take 4 or 5 days.
Right. Now you don't have access to it.
And then you go to sign up for the lab or the cart and another teacher has it. What do? Your kids are now left hanging. They're not able to finish their project. They're frustrated then that they don't get to finish their creation, or you have to wait to the next week when you can sign up for it. It interrupts your flow of learning.
Yep.
Yeah. That's not what we need to do. We went more one-to-one, and we went one-to-one for a reason. And the other thing, I just had this conversation with a school recently that's not one-to-one. And I said, I think the term one-to-one is misinterpreted. It can be a lot. One-to-one can look a lot of different ways. One-to-one can look, every kid has a device and they carry it from class to class and they take it home and they bring it back. One-to-one could mean they carry it class to class, but then they leave it at school and don't take it home. One-to-one can mean each room has a cart in it where
every
a
kid
student
can use
is
it whenever it's
assigned
needed.
a Chromebook number right? And so they go in that room and they know that number 14 is their Chromebook. But then they put it back and they go to their next class and they maybe grab another Chromebook, and that can be one-to-one. That's one-to-one. One-to-one just means that it gives the opportunity for the teacher to be on the fly, utilize those teachable moments, have instant access to technology anytime that they need it. Not all, doesn't mean they have to use it all the time. It doesn't mean we have kids staring at screens all day nonstop and that's the only thing they're doing, but it gives the teacher the power to determine the use case of when the tech is appropriate to use and when it's not.
Yep. 100%.
And you don't get that if you go back to computer labs or go back to checking out carts.
Right. Agree. And do I think that a kindergartner should spend 4 hours a day on a computer? Absolutely not. No. But if you're doing cool little stations while you're doing your reading groups, there's no reason one of them can't have, we use, I'm drawing a blank on the name of the program, but we have a little research program for kids in our district for elementary. And if you're doing a unit on plants in an elementary school and understanding plants, there's no reason you can't tell them, go to this, look up plants, and then go here and create something with it. Or maybe they're just on the computer looking up the plants, and then there's a worksheet next to them where they have to draw the plant and then label the parts of the plant and understand it doesn't always have to be sit them on a program to learn, I don't know, math skills or whatever, which we all know that doesn't work really well anyway. Any of those programs are about reinforcement, not about teaching, but the teaching has to come from the teacher. But there's no reason you can't spend 10 minutes doing that. And I think, unfortunately, we got put in a position because of the pandemic. And I hate blaming that, but that's when so much technology became available and we had to do so much so fast that we forgot about the best practices of teaching and the levels of high quality teaching. And I'm not saying teachers are not doing it for any bad reason. No, our teachers are doing the best they can with what they have, but we need to, as educators in general, take a step back at this point and start looking at how can we think about how we use these tools in a positive way, and how can we train our teachers to think about, it's not about 4 hours of screen time, but it's about the quality of what you're doing in your classroom. And if your kindergartners only ever touch a computer 2, maybe 3 times during the day for 10 minutes at a clip, hey, that's beautiful. They're getting exposure. They're learning what to do. You're giving them purposeful tasks and they're practicing. A 5-year-old probably knows it better than we do anyway. I mean, most of them.
Of a digital curriculum, I hate to keep calling out iReady, but they're
in the news right now.
They're in the news right now for multiple reasons, data privacy issues, and all sorts of other things. iReady is very much we watch a video type of thing, or maybe we read a passage and then we answer a question or a multiple choice question and do that on repeat over and over and over and over again. In that instance, the kid is staring at the screen for however long it takes them to complete that lesson.
Yep.
Now let's switch over to a Canva or a book creator or Adobe Podcasts. Maybe we're making a podcast in Adobe Podcasts. That is a completely different experience. We are now creating with the technology, and so much of what they're doing is going back and forth. We're going to if we're creating a book in Book Creator, we're going to storyboard that out maybe on a piece of paper first, and then build it on the text. So now students are going back and forth and they're looking at the paper. Maybe they're working with a partner and they're building a collaborative book.
Yep.
So they're switching off who has the device in front of them, right? They're looking at the paper, they're doing this, they're going back. Same with doing something like 3D printing. right? A lot of it is like, oh, maybe I'm like designing out and sketching out, and then I'm building it, and then I'm going back to my sketch, and then I'm plugging it into the slicer program. Then I'm walking over to the 3D printer to make
Right.
sure it's sticking to the build plate, and I'm not going to have a disaster mess of filament happen, right?
Everywhere. Yep.
So that's a perfect example of the different types of technology that we're talking about, like digital curriculums where we are typically staring at a screen and answering questions and watching videos, and versus creating where the screen is there as a tool. It's a tool that we're leveraging as part of the creation process.
Yeah.
I wish that the people that are, you know, the anti-screens and let's go back and technology is just ruining all of our brains, like it has no good parts about it, could go in a classroom and see, like the example of creating the Oregon Trail podcast.
Yeah.
And actually see using a device in a really powerful, creative way. I think that would change.
I do too.
If we could get some of that in the media, it would change the conversation a lot. But anyway, I digress. All right, wrapping up here. So you have a podcast.
I do.
Of your own. Tell us about it.
Well, it's my co-host, Matthew Rivers, who is our Director of Operational Technology, and I host From Forest to Shore. It is the Stratford Public Schools podcast. We have about 70, I think we released our 16th episode today. It dropped at 8:00 this morning. We talked to staff members, we talked to students. I'm really excited about a couple of the upcoming ones we're going to be recording before the end of the year. We get to talk to our Teacher of the Year from this year, who was just announced yesterday. Now that she was announced, I can add her to the list of people, as well as our past 2 Teachers of the Year. We're going to be talking with them. And then we also have a podcast coming up where we will be talking with our salutatorians and valedictorians from our 2 high schools and learning about their experiences in our district. But one of my favorite ones was the one that came out today. We talked to one of our 7th graders and a school counselor about transitioning from one school to another and what it's like. Because in our school, we go K to 6, and then they go to middle school from 7 to 8, and then they go to high school. And so he had just taken the leap from 6th grade into 7th grade. And we got to talk to him about what it's like to transition from one school to another, and what was scary and what wasn't scary, and what fears were unfounded. And we just have a really fun time talking about what's going on in our town and, you know, talking to the kids. And we're doing another one at the end of the month at our art show. We're actually taking our podcast on the road and going to be talking to the kids at our district art show. So we like to get information out there. And while it is Stratford specific, the concepts that we talk about kind of transcend just our district. So we love it when we have people we do have some listeners. We have a listener in Alaska. I have no idea who it is. But all of our stuff tells me that I have somebody from Alaska who listens regularly. So
that's one way listeners can connect with you. How else can they connect with you?
I'm on Instagram at Dr. M. Eckler, EDU, DRMECKLER, EDU. I am on LinkedIn as well. You could find me, Michelle Eckler, on LinkedIn. And then, I do have a website, michelleeckler.com. It's kind of sparse right now. I've been working on getting that updated and working on my blog posts to get ready, And come find me at ISTE. I'm doing a lot of things. I'll be at the Magic School booth one of the days. I'm going to be at the AI Pavilion a couple of times, the Makerspace Playground. I'm also going to be at the Certified Educator stage one day. So there's a lot of ways to contact me there as well. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
Awesome. And yes, I will be at the Makerspace Playground as well. And again, that's the last day, Wednesday, 11 to 12:45. And it sounds like you can't miss us.
No, we're going to be right there.
Right in the center of it all. Awesome. Yep. We end every episode with a Make EdTech 100 moment to leave listeners with that kind of summarizes up our conversation. We hit lots of different topics today. So what would be your Make EdTech 100 moment to leave people with?
Probably that podcast that my tech integration specialist did. I mean, it was just awesome to listen to the kids and just see how excited they were to get that information out there. And, it was a little topic for them, but it was a big deal to get their thoughts out to everyone. That was great.
I love that. You should do one where what we were just talking about, where the kids are talking and explaining, like creating their Oregon Trail podcast or,
you know what I mean? Talking about the whole process. Exactly.
Yes.
You can't talk about your process with AI.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. No, seriously. Because
Yeah.
again, that's like the only way that we're going to combat this anti-screen time,
Yeah.
anti-tech debate is by all working together to educate people,
Yeah.
show them that side of technology, that not all screen time is created equal. That's the only way we're going to be able to do it. So anyway, love that idea. Thank you so much, Michelle,
Thank you
for
for having
joining
me.
us. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for joining Make EdTech 100. I know educator time is valuable, and I'm honored you choose to spend yours with me. For more EdTech strategies you can use tomorrow and ways to bring me to your school or event, head to lindyhawk.com. If this episode resonated, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. I'm Lindy Hawk. Go forth and make EdTech 100.